Welcome to Nailed It, a podcast featuring business tips from industry leaders, presented by Clever Punch. Here's your host, Jade Flogerzi.
On today's episode of Nailed It, we're thrilled to welcome Michael Holliday. He's an accomplished architect, entrepreneur, and thought leader in sustainable design. With nearly $200 million in commercial, institutional, and residential projects under his belt, Michael's work has been recognized with numerous awards from the American Institute of Architects, the AIA. In 2012, he achieved the prestigious honor of becoming a National AIA Fellow, a distinction that's only shared amongst 2% of architects nationwide. Michael's passionate about environmentally responsible design and is a LEED accredited professional, bringing a deep commitment of green building to every project. As a principal architect at DMHA Architecture and Interior Design, Michael works with a talented team dedicated to creating inspired, efficient, and meaningful designs. And beyond his architectural achievements, Michael serves as chairman of the board for the MIT Enterprise Forum of the Central Coast, where he supports and mentors entrepreneurs and innovators. So join us as we dive into Michael's journey and discuss with him how people are the key to success in a culture of collaboration, inspiration, and lasting impact with every project. Thanks so much for being on the show, Michael.
Well, happy to be here.
So we could really spend this whole episode talking about the projects that DMHA has done. You have such an impressive portfolio and a wide-spanning variety of projects and projects that are very iconic. Of course, if anyone looks at your residential portfolio, you have stunning residential projects. You also have commercial projects that are very well known and respected in the community. There's Direct Relief Headquarters, the Turnpike Commercial Center, the Cabrillo Commercial Complex, Maddie's Tavern, the Lansby, the mixed-use project on Linden Avenue. So we could spend our whole time focusing on that. But what I really wanted to get into and talk with you about today is to dive into the culture of your team and see if we can discern what are the key components to what makes your projects at DMHA so iconic. So let's start with the team. Help us understand who makes up DMHA.
Yeah, well, that's a great question. And thanks for that flattering introduction, Jade. I'm kind of nice to sit back and hear all that stuff. But who is this person is my question. Anyway, no, very honored to be here today and to talk a little bit about culture. To me, it's like everything. You know, we're sort of at the top of our game at this stage of my career anyway, and even my partners. And we've actually kind of designed our firm the way we wanted it. We've all got 20 to 30 to me 40 years of being in this business and trying to make some really strategic and important decisions that we actually made almost 13 years ago now. We're coming up on our 13th year of working together. And, you know, working with people that we really want to work with that are very talented and gifted and most importantly, have the right attitude for us as far as working with people and what's important. Obviously, the bottom line is part of what's important and being, professional and responsible is part of what's important. But really, life is short and we want to enjoy, sort of each moment and enjoy the opportunities that we get to work with, unique people on unique projects. And living in a place like Santa Barbara is already a unique experience. So it's sort of really important for us. We've curated that process and continue to do so. That's why I was really interested to be a part of this broadcast. So, the old saying, teach that which you desire to learn. So hopefully I can learn a little from you and we can talk about these things as we move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And DMHA, it stands for...
Yeah, it was. So right? I was a senior partner in one of the largest firms in town. I think we were the largest, and then I after 18 years there, I left and sort of went out on my own, and was always in that organization, sort of the rainmaker, and had all this work, millions of dollars of fees coming in, and so you got 28 people working for you. Everything, all the problems rise to the top. So that was a unique and great experience, by the way. My previous team I'm so thankful and grateful. They brought me to Santa Barbara, and I'm very grateful for that experience. But then working by myself for 7 years, I kind of worked on my own, doing all the things that I really wanted to do in the profession. And then, I kept hiring all of these same people to help me get these projects done. And that's what led to sort of the DMHA, which was DeVicente Mills Holliday Associates. And now we sort of totally morphed into just being DMHA because we have Mike Stroh here as a partner, and we've got another other great architects. Our team's phenomenal. So that's kind of what led to the DMHA moniker and our logo and branding.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to projects, I bet one of the things that you hear most common, and I know I've heard it as well, is I see your signs everywhere. And that's not to say that you are taking on any project. I know you want to be very discerning with the projects that you take, but you are well known in the community and people see your work around Santa Barbara, Montecito, Los Olivos, the Valley.
Yeah.
When it comes to taking on a project, what do you look for?
Well, we really look for a great fit. We actually spend some time, trying to discern how can we, strategically best meet the needs of our client. And we just sort of went through a vision, mission, core values workshop, which was really helpful. And that helped us. It becomes very easy to figure out if these clients are a good fit for you once you're clear on how you want to sort of get to a certain point with every project. And so I think trust is a huge component. Sort of our mission statement was your vision, our expertise, enjoy the journey to great design. What we realized was we love great design and we're going to get there one way or another. And that's our job, our expertise. But we love taking our client's vision and making that reality. And that's what makes every project very unique. And I think it's something that separates us from a lot of other architects, that it's sort of my vision, my expertise, enjoy my journey to great design. That's a little bit egocentric probably. And most architects are, I always like to say our ego's not our amigo. So let's get over ourselves and let's put the client first and put their interests first and see how we can help them get to the destination that they want to go to.
Is there projects that you will turn down?
We've turned down more work this year than I've ever in my entire career. Just jobs that just don't fit, timing that doesn't work, and we're all super fortunate really the last several years to be as busy as I can ever remember in this industry. Everyone says it's going to come to an end. It hasn't yet. We hope it doesn't. But it's really great timing. And last year was our best year ever. And on a metric financially, which is a nice metric to look at. But also we got 2024 Large Business of the Year from the South Coast Chamber of Commerce. And we got the Spirit of Small Business Award from the Pacific Coast Business Times. And those aren't things we're really pursuing. It's just sort of, our work, especially in the nonprofit sector, is something that's been out there. And so, we're honored and sort of flattered. And I like to tell my team, now we got to earn it. All these great things that people have said about us, we're only as good as our last worst project. So how can we step up and improve what we do?
When you're considering a project, what do you get the most excited about? What aspects of it? Is it the people? Is it the potential that it has?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I teach a high school career class for kids in choosing a career. And I tell them that because I was pre-med for 3 years, I was going to be a doctor with Holliday. My parents were really excited. We're finally going to have a Doc Holliday in the family. But after 3 years of being, going that whole track and hanging out with extremely brilliant guys with photographic memories, it was amazing that guys could read something once and they could recall it, where I had to study it 10 times to get it right. I could keep up with them. I just had to work 10 times harder. But then I started working as an orderly in the hospital and dealing with sick people, which is, you got to be called to do that. So for me, it was really finding that right niche. And my dad was an architect. So, of course, you want to be something better than your dad. Dad, you're just an architect. I'm going to go be a doctor. Well, then I started realizing, man, my dad had a pretty ideal profession, working creatively with his hands and with the drawings. But I think about the people that fit. What I say in that college and careers class, I tell them that story about going to pre-med and then shifting into architecture. But I said it's been the passion of kings throughout antiquity to design and build things. Security is not your passion, and the basic Maslow's needs are met. You're secure, you've got food, you're surviving. Then what do you want to do? You want to build something. You want to create something. And you look through antiquity. I find that to be the case. So it's extremely rewarding to be able to conceive and then design and then build something and then be able to sit back and look at it. And hopefully it's a thing of beauty. It's something that meets a need and that, really people get excited about. So kind of becomes an obsession. When you get so excited about the last project, I mean, especially when our clients get excited. I just got an email from one of our clients, did a beautiful house in Hope Ranch. They were just so ecstatic, and they shared some stuff that was just like, this is like, for me, the ultimate reward where you really, and it was hard project. There's a lot of, we don't give up. We're going to persevere. We're going to help them get where they want to go, because it's hard to build. There's a lot of complexity. Things have never been harder. And the harder it gets, the more valuable we become, because most normal people can't deal with the complexities of building departments, code requirements, ADA access, everything on commercial and residential projects. So I just look at it as a challenge. No project too small or too complicated. We can figure it out. So that's the attitude that I try to take, or we try to take.
There's definitely a common thread with the projects that you get to work on. Definitely with the commercial ones that the public is going to see, from, Linden mixed use building in Carpinteria, which is so exciting, Maddie's Tavern. But it even blends into the residential projects. And that thread is creating spaces where people gather together. I can gather from this conversation that when I asked, what do you get excited about? What projects do you get excited about? It's like, it's the people and their excitement that rubs off on you. And I can imagine creating spaces that gather people together where they're creating memories, because of the space that you played a part in, must be so rewarding. What do you think? Is there anything else that you think drives that passion for creating spaces that brings people together?
Yeah, I think when we work with you and your team on the placemaking piece of this, that was a word that we discovered. We like placemaking. And I think that's really become a theme for us as we carry it forward. Sense of place is so important, and really it sort of transcends commercial, residential, or even institutional. Like, we've done some institutional projects that are labs that the scientists get so excited because we actually solve some functional problems about putting some machinery next to each other. Once we understood where things needed to be, they actually knew the right solution, but had never been given the tools to, you tell me where you want this to go and we'll make it work. And so whether it's an institutional type job or a commercial project like the Linden, kind of Carpinteria urban revitalization project, that is just finishing up right now. And it's going to be, we're going to get great photographs and amazing tenants going into that building, Channel Island surfboards, and a lot of, world-renowned people that it's just going to be a great little space in Carpinteria that, with beautiful modern design sort of being part of it. And, that's just another beautiful thing, not to mention the funk zone. We've had a huge presence in the funk zone with Florida Maia's and Oku and the beer garden and the Sunstone Winery. Now we're doing that. And then I did Channel Island Surf Shop 20 years ago when the funk zone wasn't even a place to be. So Al and Terry Merrick were like, we're moving a block off State Street. We're not sure it's going to work. And now it's like
into a former Army barrack or a former rehabilitation center for the Army.
That's right. It was really beautiful. Well, and Al that's his style. It's all about the boards. It's all about the surfers. He goes, I don't care what the building looks like. So we carried that theme through, and that was a amazing thing to work with people like that, and Tom Curran, and meeting all these different people that that are in part of that Channel Islands circle, and then Brett Merrick, and working with Britt, and then doing reality, the church, which is another thing. We've done 23 churches over the last few decades. I love doing those spaces for people that sort of have a, real significant spiritual importance to them. So whether it's a commercial project or a lab for a high tech or a house, I mean, that's sort of what this email that I got from these people. They just loved the space, resonated, everything they wanted, and we're hoping for. Actually, was said it's better than we hoped or imagined. So those are beautiful comments to hear, because we kind of did our job, and they're stoked about it. Which to me, it's about kind of bringing the stoke to the clients.
Anyone that has worked with you or even listening to this episode can tell that you have, this energy for life. You're a positive person. You bring the stoke to your approach. How do you stay positive? There's a lot of challenges in being a business owner, and there's a lot of complexities when it comes to being an architect. you're working with so many different people overlapping on a project, and issues are bound to come up. How do you stay positive personally?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, at this stage of my career, I'm still trying to figure that one out. My story is pretty interesting if you look back, because my dad actually passed away when he was 52. And I took over his firm in Florida when I'm 27. I'm not even a licensed architect. I go back there, he's got eight architects. And of course, I'm this hotshot kid from Cal Poly, graduated number one in my class. So I'm going to go back and set the world on fire in Florida, which was beautiful modern architecture of Paul Rudolph and the Sarasota School. So, there's a pedigree of modernism and beautiful residential, mostly residential projects in that area that my dad was an architect as well, worked with the Sarasota School and was under the influence of Rudolph. So going back there was like, helping my mom work through, losing my dad. And by the way, I got married. I took my sweetheart and took her back to Florida for 6 years and bought a house, took over a business. Like every stress metric that you want to apply, we were over the edge. And I kind of developed a survival mentality of I refuse to go negative. I'm just going to stay positive. We got to get this thing done for my mom, for my wife, for, everyone's counting on me. And so that was a real, I think, a good defense mechanism, and got me through a lot. And I continue to carry that forward. And then I had my son, my 33-year-old son, when you can start asking your son for wisdom, like I do, all three of our sons have very unique insights, and I'm learning from them, after all these years. And he gave me a book called Emotionally Healthy Spirituality. And he goes, Dad, I think you ought to read this book, because I had that. I refuse to go negative. And so now I'm processing some of this other stuff. And of course, my wife loves it because I'm actually thinking about emotional things and stuff like that. So without getting too messy, though, I felt like, that's been a great opportunity for me to really learn and still continue to get better. But I just love positivity. I just feel like it's so uplifting and it's so needed in this community, in this world, at this stage of life, and the challenges in architecture are unbelievable. It's more complicated than it's ever been to get buildings built, and engineering and architecture and details and code requirements and ADA access. And we're pretty much on top of that. We're, leaders in that industry, and we're learning every day. So I just try to keep that positive focus and not denying, the sort of the negative stuff, which can be unhealthy. Like, hey, this sucks. This is no good. It's okay to acknowledge that this is no bueno, but we got to move forward. And my mindset is like, let's figure out how we can take this negative experience, learn from it, and move forward and improve to do a better job for our clients. That's ultimately what we're all about. And then we feel better about it because we didn't give up. We didn't cave. We conquered the situation. So it's a little, I don't know if that answers your question or not, but it's sort of a little retrospective and sort of future focus for me. And, as a surfer, that word stoke is you're stoked when you just get when you get a wave, it's like that. So that's really what I say is, we had a big birthday party here. My son put together a video, and it was 60 years of stoke. And it was my kids commenting on like, Dad's always stoked, And so I felt like, what a great thing to say about your parents. I'd say probably the same thing about my dad. I never really got a chance to, but and he didn't surf, so he didn't really get it. But all three of my sons are hardcore surfers, so they're like, Dad's stoked all the time. So that carries over into our business and the culture, which is probably something you want to talk about more. But that's
yeah, I did. I wanted to ask how you bring that to your team. How do you have that I appreciate you reflecting on where that kind of started in your journey with your life and with your family, and that you've always tried to make that a priority. But then how do you create a culture that celebrates that or cultivate an environment that fosters that creativity and that joy within your team?
Yeah, I think that's huge because, again, I'm processing all this stuff myself. My mom passed away a few years ago, and she was my biggest cheerleader. And this is the importance of positive people, especially parents. I couldn't fail in my mom's eyes. I was like always going to win. I could still hear her saying, go, man, go for it, man. She was just always this cheerleader in my life. And when you hear that, you grow up with that, you start to believe it, and so it's really a very, very positive thing. Even though my dad wasn't around, my mom was like always that, and she was always that way, even when my dad was, she and my dad were, he was here with her. But in the culture of the firm, I'm kind of like a senior elder now. I used to be like the youngest guy hanging out with all these really rock star architects. I mean, you look back and I just feel so thankful and grateful, not only for my father, who was an architect, but to have been associated with, Paul Rudolph and the whole Sarasota school. And then Larry Scarpa, who's one of my good buddies and friends and really mentors. He got the national AIA gold medal a few years ago. So I took my son, Eric, and we went back to Chicago for that event, and I go, here, when your friends are getting they select one architect out of the entire country to receive this award for modernism and sustainability and just leading edge design. Both he and his wife were recognized. And I felt like, man, we are privileged and thankful. I feel blessed to be here. So to have sort of that circle of friends and those mentors and the people here in my own office, my own partners, I really work hard to keep that positive focus and be thankful and grateful. Thank God for all the blessings we have, man. We live in Santa Barbara. We're living the dream in so many ways that I just can't really, how can you be bummed out when there's just so much good stuff to be stoked about? And anytime you really get bummed, I get in the water and I go surfing. That clears my mind. I'm back after I come in from a session. And so that's my secret.
I love it. We mentioned it's more complicated than it's ever been to be an architect and to have projects. And you mentioned some of those challenges, the requirements, getting projects passed through the boards, getting projects that are in line with the client's vision and what they wanted to see from the project. So when your team comes up against those challenges, how do you face them? Can you think of like tangible ways that, okay, we just had this bomb explode that we're up against. So then what's that process like moving through that?
Well, I think you look at every challenge. I mean, my mindset is look at every challenge as an opportunity to improve, and at the same time, not denying the bummer of the situation for the contractor or the subcontractor or the client. I mean, there's a lot of money on the line. There's a lot of time on the line. And even if it's not our fault, we take ownership to solve the problem as quickly as we can for the client's best interest and not pointing fingers, which I think is a really good team player mentality. I refuse to, I don't want to have anyone on our team doing that. And I actually got another awesome compliment from another client that goes, I don't know what it is about the DMHA team, but everybody on your team is so fired up. And I said, hey, that's a great compliment, man. I take that as a compliment. Just because that's what I want our team to resonate, is that we're going to step up and help you get where you want to go with no matter the project. And so I think that passion piece becomes like this beautiful thing that we can get excited about almost anything if we look at it the right way. And some of the architects that I have working with me, they have the same mindset. They're like, we don't care what the project is. We're just going to solve this thing quickly and efficiently and with excellence. And then there's this beautiful sense of satisfaction that we did the best we could. And you got to be okay with that. It's probably the last thing. Like, hey, we did the best we could. Even if things didn't work out exactly how we hoped for, we can walk away with our head held high. And, 99% of the time, it's an overwhelming success. That's kind of the mindset that we try to take and keep as we look at these challenges that are going to come up every day. I mean, when you look at, I read an article recently about the amount of information that our brains process, that in any one day, statistically, the amount of information that those of us who get 100 emails a day with attachments, with PDFs, with things you got to review, is as much as somebody would process in a decade back or even longer 100 years ago. So the levels of information, I can't even believe our brain keeps up with that kind of stuff. And I can remember, I read every email. I respond if I have to every email. So I can remember, oh, yeah, I remember that. And then I go search it and I can find it. And, it's just phenomenal to me that we're not being overwhelmed. So I think the unplug, okay, 5:30, I'm done. I'm going to go play 2 hours of pickleball and blow it out, or go surfing. So I think the physical thing, for me at least, is a huge part of success. I mean, guys at our level, you can't perform if you're not, having some form of release, whether it's spinning, which is another passion I have, or working out at the gym, or, playing with some great pickleball players that include me on the court. I'm the lamest player on the court. or being surfing, which I've been doing my whole life pretty much. So those things allow you to sort of recharge very quickly within a few hours, and then you're ready to get back. Okay, I can go back in and get after it.
Yeah. And have that, if you're not doing something to refresh, it's not sustainable. You're not, if you're burning the candle at both ends, you're doing however many hours in a day, thinking you're going to get ahead or thinking that the more you work on a project, the better it's going to be. It's not the case.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And I think the more technologically challenged we get with device communication, you've got to be able to unplug from that stuff and leave your phone. That's why I don't want to have an Apple Watch. I don't need to be vibrated when I got another text message or something. I'd need to focus on, detoxing from some of that stuff. And then, reconnecting. It's really important. There's so much data and information. And I love it personally. There's so much information out there. You can learn, you can grow, you can get better. You can just do so much that was just virtually impossible, even a decade ago. I mean, look at us doing this whole online interview. That was sort of the silver lining to the dark cloud of COVID was Zoom and online networks. We don't have to drive anymore. We can be in these really intensive meetings and get things done. In some ways, it's even more, we're actually preferring it because all of us can mark up the screen. And then I take a screenshot of all of that collective input. I go, look at all this input that everyone in this, the landscape architects, civil engineers, client, us as the architects, we're all able to sort of mark something up and say, what about this? What about that? So I think the process is actually improving the projects, but you got to keep your head, in the game and not get overwhelmed by the complexities and the problems.
Amazing example of being collaborative. The last thing I wanted to touch on is, because we've talked about your background personally, your education, your history, the journey that has brought you here. Then we talked about the team that you have, then how that trickles into the projects that you do. I also wanted to focus on how DMHA donates a portion of its profits and design efforts to nonprofits.
Yeah.
So that kind of last little piece, how do you decide which organizations to support and what impact do you hope to make through those contributions?
Yeah, it's a great question. And this is sort of the old principle, give before you get, that we can get to be such takers that we don't give. And I think that's, sort of being lost in our culture in a lot of ways. And so our sort of motto is give before you get. We need to give back. And we have been doing so for decades here in this community. For the nonprofits that we work with, we find ones that we're sort of aligned with, sort of at the heart level and at the sort of philosophy level. Direct Relief, of course, number one nonprofit in the United States, arguably the world, doing just incredible, relief to people that have been affected by natural disasters. They don't get involved in wars or anything like that. So that's huge. And then, Habitat for Humanity is huge, and working with Salvation Army. We did their downtown, homeless center there. And we've done a lot of those kinds of projects. The churches, of course, take on a whole life of their own, which we love. So I think that's just become our way to give back, and then donating, our time, like now for the chamber, and of course, the MIT Enterprise Forum, which is now Ventec, the Emerging Ventures and Technology Forum. So I'm on that board. These are some of the smartest people that I know in Santa Barbara, and they're about giving back and launching, the next generation of entrepreneurs and cooking up the next great idea. So that's where I try to focus my time and effort. And the UCSB Economic Forecast Project, I'm on that board. This is using UCSB's sort of leading edge economic insights to forecasting futures and trends, and that's super valuable for our community. And so we're trying to really help the community take maximum advantage of having UCSB in our own backyard. So those are the things that I focus on.
Thank you so much for this conversation. It was great to hear about, everything that leads to, we focus so much at the project at the end, right? What it looks like when it's done. That's such a focus when people think of your projects. But it was really nice to dive in and see what are the components that lead up to it. Why are these projects so successful? Why are there such iconic landmarks that DMHA has been behind commercially and also residentially? And so Thank you for taking time to share a little bit.
I would like to just give a shout out to my partners, Ryan Mills, Ed DiVicente, and Mike Stroh. I mean, they're the guys that round me out, and all the other people on our team. They're too numerous to mention, but they're the ones that really make our project successful. And that's the strength of our team. No one person can stay on top of this stuff. It takes a collaborative team effort to really make it happen.
13 years later, you're obviously doing something right. If somebody wants to learn more about DMHA or wants to reach out to you and interested in working together, what's the best way to find you?
They can contact us on our website and look for me directly. Michael, I'm one of the principals here, but you can reach out to me directly and either phone call or my email is michael@dmhaa.com. So I'm happy to connect with anybody and collectively think about projects. I'm working with several people thinking about what potentially could come of properties and opportunities. I love that sort of creative brainstorming. How do we achieve highest and best value out of a site or a property or even a residence?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for the conversation.
All right. Thank you, Jade.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Nailed It, business tips from industry leaders, brought to you by Clever Punch. Nailed It is all about connecting with people, building relationships, and helping each other. If you're interested in connecting with any of the guests on our episodes, you can find their contact info in our show notes or on the podcast page at cleverpunchco.com. You can also email info@cleverpunchco.com with any questions or feedback. I'm your host, Jade Flogerzi. Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.